Hi, this is Michelle Martin with the new Century CIL blog. We've been doing a series of interviews with executive directors from Centers for Independent Living to learn more about how they are getting really creative in generating revenue. How are they more entrepreneurial? How are they partnering in different ways for impact? I'm really trying to learn from the best practices that are going on in the field. And today I'm happy to have with us Eli Gelardin, who is the Executive Director for the Marin Center for Independent Living. And you also wear another hat, which is the chair of the California State Silk, right?
That's right. Great to
Yeah,
be here, Michelle.
it's great to have you. I'm excited. So, Eli, can you tell us a little bit about the Marin Center and more specifically, give us a few examples of some of the entrepreneurial projects you guys are involved with?
Sure, absolutely. Well, Marin Center for Independent Living is a 35-year-old independent living center in California. We are the other side of the Golden Gate Bridge, as I like to say, so across from San Francisco in the Bay Area. We're one of the smallest centers in the state. In fact, we're the second smallest federally funded center in California. So entrepreneurship and kind of innovation has really kind of been a necessity for us. We have to be creative about how we serve a portion of the San Francisco Bay Area, a very large aging community where our population is going to double in the number of individuals over 60 over the next 20 years. So,
Wow.
we've always kind of had an entrepreneurial spirit. I think independent living in general, this is just a little segue, but
Yeah.
independent living has an entrepreneurial spirit. You see it in our foundation, in our roots, and I think continuing that legacy of creativity and adaptation and meeting the needs of the community and the services, evolving the services to do that is a necessity.
Absolutely. You have to kind of walk the talk, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So in terms of entrepreneurial activities that we're engaged in, because our funding is so small relative to the needs of the community, federal funding that is, we've always had to be creative about how we expand our services. And one of the real simple strategies that we've applied over the years, and it started way before me with my predecessor, Bob Roberts, was really do what you do well and expand that. We've always done, direct services very well, in my opinion. We serve typically over 800 consumers a year for a small center. We've always, since the inception of the WIPA program, the BPAO Benefits Counseling Program, we've always done benefits counseling. So one example of kind of taking a core service, independent living skills training and benefits counseling, into a more entrepreneurial direction was expanding our WIPA program into an emerging need, which in our community is breast cancer. So we partnered with several local community foundations and breast cancer service providers and hospitals such as Kaiser Permanente, which is a big health institution out here in California, and our local general hospital, to really expand our existing benefits counseling program and provide advanced breast cancer benefits counseling to ensure that individuals diagnosed with breast cancer maintain their health coverage, maintain their housing, maintain their independent living, essentially, while going through treatment. And we've been able to source various funding for that program over the years. That program is now in its 10th year, I believe. It really, again, started from a simple concept of doing something very well and expanding it.
Mm-hmm. Looking for different potential quote-unquote target customers who
Exactly.
could also benefit from the service that you're looking for, which I think as an entrepreneur myself, I mean, that's really kind of core is figuring out, how could you take it into new markets? How could you take it to new communities that, may not have used your services but could benefit from that?
Exactly, exactly. And it's also really given us a outreach into an expanded, population and consumer base that I would say typically doesn't come into many independent living centers.
Right.
So
Which
it's
then I would think would help with kind of your core mission of educating the public about, what this is all about and how to support people, because now you are getting to a different population that you wouldn't otherwise come into contact with.
exactly.
Hmm. So tell me about some other examples. What are some other things that you guys are working on?
Sure. Well, one of our biggest kind of ventures right now, and it has been for the last almost 5 years, has been an online web application, which we call Quick Match. And again, going back to what I said earlier, it started with just a simple core service and doing it very well. In this case, personal assistance services or consumer-directed services, however we call it. We've always maintained a registry at the center since our inception. But in California, as IHSS, in-home support services, took form and kind of moved some of the consumer-directed services out of many centers, what we recognized is a real need to continue a home care registry, but really kind of to market it specifically for individuals who might not qualify for in-home support services, but at the same time they don't have the financial resources to pay in our area anywhere from $30 to $60 an hour for private home health care. So we've run a very affordable, high quality registry. We serve approximately 100 to 150 people a year with our registry. And about 5 or 6 years ago, we really evolved an idea that my predecessor, Bob Roberts, had, which is providing an online registry. Bob was a big fan of the internet when it was just starting up, and he always had this vision of providing virtual services. And when he passed away and I took over in 2008, we really wanted to take that vision into reality. So we teamed up with a web designer, a very talented individual, and basically took that evolution of creating an online virtual service, Quick Match, which matches consumers with caregivers, personal attendants. And originally we kind of just saw it as a direct service for the center, and it got a lot of notoriety. It kind of was seen as best practice in our community, and it expanded our mission, and we saw a lot more customers or consumers, kind of coming to us and saying, hey, I want to check out what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And it kind of took off from there. We got calls from other centers in the Bay Area who were like, what are you up to? That seems really interesting. Mm-hmm. And we actually, weren't even thinking about offering it to other centers initially. But then we recognized there was an opportunity, and we said, well, we don't know any better, so we're just going to go with it. And I think we're in 7 centers now and across California, and we just expanded to our first national partner in St. Louis, Paraquad, who's running Quick Match. We have, I believe, over 500 PAs and probably at least a couple thousand users on the network of Quick Match. And, we hope to expand it even further. We've been to D.C. to present it as a national practice at the Home and Community-Based Services Conference. And again, I think it started with a simple idea. We took it from there, and it's been a fun ride.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I wrote down two things that you said because, again, I feel like these are kind of core to how you shift your thinking and become more entrepreneurial. One was you said you saw an opportunity, and I think that's a huge thing, is getting yourself in kind of that mindset of looking for opportunity, and seeing challenges, problems, and good things that happen as potential opportunities. So that I think is huge. But the other thing, and I had to kind of laugh at this, is that you said we didn't know any better.
Yeah.
You know how many businesses have become successful because the people didn't know any better?
Right. Right. Well,
Sometimes, it's about not having the answers and not knowing what's in front of you and just kind
yes.
of going.
Exactly. Well, I think that's in independent living in a nutshell as well. I mean, we were our predecessors and our founders were constantly doubted along the way. What? Go to college? Work? But
Right,
you're significantly disabled. How is that possible?
right.
And you do really have to take that leap, but do it in a calculated way and
Hmm.
be strategic about it, and adapt to it. I think. I think obviously entrepreneurship is the foundation of our country, and I think it's the foundation of independent living. You look at Ed Roberts, I would say he's an entrepreneur. He brought a vision, a new way of thinking, and applied it to disability services. The same could be said for Judy and Justin and all of those individuals.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. You're right. And that is a core thing. And then it becomes a matter again of how do we kind of live that life?
Yeah, and
How
it's
do we have that represented in everything that we're doing rather than it just being something we're saying?
exactly. And I think it's okay to make mistakes too. I mean,
Absolutely.
we it's very easy. This is just my opinion, but when you have a base, federal funding amount that really kind of doesn't change year to year, and you have the same core services year to year, and you know pretty much the same consumer base, I think it's very easy to be comfortable in that
Right.
environment. But you look at everything that's changing around us, and how quickly things have moved, and I think it's going to be integral to independent living, and it's going to be integral to service providers, to long-term care providers, to our communities to be adaptive. There is some risk involved, but again, I think if you take a simple approach and just think about what you do well, what you're comfortable with, and how you can build upon that, there's a strategy.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that is kind of core to entrepreneurship is this idea that you iterate. So it's not some plan out some major thing and let's go to implementation, and it's a constant iterative evolving process and seeing what works and what doesn't and how do we learn from that. And I actually think that that's kind of a better way to do work, period, in a really uncertain environment, which is where we are,
Yeah,
is in a lot of uncertainty. You just can't plan that far ahead because the plan's going to fall apart when it's the real world, which is something
exactly.
else entrepreneurs learn. No matter how much planning you did, you're not going to be able to anticipate everything that comes down the road.
Totally, totally.
Yeah. So, tell me from your perspective, what are some of the, if a Center for Independent Living is starting to think, okay, we need to get some multiple revenue streams coming in here. We need to start, diversifying, and not just maintaining what we've had and kind of administering the government funding we've been receiving. What are some of the things that you think are important for people to keep in mind, and some kind of the lessons learned that you would share with people?
Sure. Boy, there's a lot of lessons learned. I think one of the core things is, don't just start a fee for service for the money. Think about what the community need is. Don't chase the shiny dollar. Assess talk to people, talk to service providers, talk to private industry, talk to your friends and neighbors, talk to the people, in the Chamber of Commerce, talk to your Board of Supervisors, get to know what the community need is, kind of going with the silk adage, your needs assessment. Because that's where your demand is. That's where your, base is. Creating a great idea when there's no need and demand, that's simple economics. It's no matter how good an idea is, it won't catch on. But so kind of starting with that very basic needs assessment, what is the community facing in terms of obstacles? I think the other thing is, just making sure your house is in order before you kind of go out into the wilderness. Make sure that you're doing your basic core services well. Make sure that your financials are in shape, that you do have a board that supports your vision of where you're taking the agency, that you have a staff that supports where things are going. Yes, there's that element of the unknown, but kind of having the simple things in place, the financials, the board support, the community support, really puts you in a position to succeed, and also in a position where when you do face obstacles, challenges, stuff comes up, which it will, you have the buy-in to address it. Mm-hmm. The community will help you, your board will help you, your staff will help you. Taking it on kind of fly by night, I think is not the best strategy. It really is about ensuring that everything is solid and then going from there. With all that being said, there's risk in everything, and recognizing that as you're going into a new service or a new model of service delivery, that there is the unknown, that mistakes will be made, and having a core leadership team in place to address that. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be just staff. It could be a advisor, a consultant. It could be a team of advisors. It could be a board member. It could be a politician. But really having kind of a go-to problem-solving group to address stuff that comes up.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thank you so much, Eli. This has been really helpful and informative. I've enjoyed talking with you.
You as well, Michelle.
This is Michelle Martin with the New Century CIL blog, and we've been talking with Eli Gelardin, who is the Executive Director of the Marin Center for Independent Living. Thanks, Eli. Great talking with you.
You too. Have a great week.